Whether or not we're aware of it, every time we interact with an animal, we're learning something and the animal's learning something. Now, whether the animal's learning what we want it to learn is another story altogether.
For instance, some dogs drag their owners around on walks or even wander on leash as if their owners don't exist on the other end. If you let your dog walk this way, then you're training him to walk this way, and he's training you to let him walk this way. If you want him to walk politely on a loose leash, you have to first modify your behavior so that he'll modify his. We can best do this if we understand what motivates animals and how they learn. Incidentally, since the processes of learning are similar across species, once we understand them, we can train all kinds of animals to perform all kinds of behaviors. For instance, you could train simple tasks, such as teaching a dog to come when called.
Zoe, here!
A mule to put his head in his halter. Or a chicken to hurdle several jumps. You could also train more complex behaviors, such as teaching a giraffe to place his hoof on a board long enough for it to be trimmed, or teaching a chicken to navigate weave poles. All we really need to know is what motivates our pets to perform certain behaviors. Then we can learn to reward them for good behaviors instead of accidentally reinforcing bad behaviors. For instance, this dog Lucky jumps on the couch to greet guests because guests reward him by petting him and letting him sit on their lap. Here he begs at the dinner table because he sometimes gets scraps if he begs long enough. Solving these problems is relatively simple. All we have to do is first figure out what's reinforcing the bad behavior, remove that reinforcement, and then reward a more appropriate behavior. For instance, when Lucky runs to this guest, the guest stands up so Lucky can't sit on his lap. Then when Lucky sits, he gives Lucky treats and attention. At the dinner table, Mako ignores Lucky for begging and instead rewards Lucky for lying down on his rug away from the table.
This probably seems pretty simple so far, but what do we do if we can't get our goal behavior in one step?
For instance, how can we train a dog to run to a rug and stay there with lots of distractions in just one step? We can't really. Rather, we have to start by rewarding behaviors that we can get and gradually reward behaviors that are closer and closer to our goal behavior. In other words, we're shaping behavior through little steps called successive approximations. Here's an example of how you might shape a behavior, such as teaching a dog to somersault. You could first teach the dog to touch a target in front of her nose. When she touches it, give her a treat. When she's good at this step, next reward her only for touching the target held down lower. When she's good at this step, only reward her for touching the target between her legs.
Target. Yes.
And if you continue to increase the criteria in this manner by little steps, you'll eventually get a somersault. In this program, we'll use many simple shaping steps to build up to our goal behaviors. It's best to go through all the steps so that you and your dog experience lots of success rather than skipping ahead and having to go back to repeat steps later on. Well, now we know about rewarding good behaviors and about shaping through little steps, but how do we know what to use to reward our dogs? All animals are motivated by food and by the need to avoid pain or danger because both are required for survival. We don't want to use pain or incite fear during training, or we may teach our dog that training is something to avoid. We can, however, use food very effectively. So in this program, we shape behavior using food rewards as well as some other motivators depending on what your dog likes. Because we'll be using so much food during this training, We recommend you have your dog work for his meals on a regular basis. Some people might think it's unfair or mean to make your dog work for his food, but what's really rude is dumping his entire meal in front of his face. How would you like that? Dogs in the wild spend hours searching for their food, and research studies show time and time again that animals prefer to work for their food once they learn how. In fact, you probably intuitively know this already. Dogs spend hours chewing on bones. Removing all the meat for them and tossing the bone away would take all the fun out of this process. In order to turn feeding time into more fun for your dog, we recommend that you let him earn all of his food out of the Treat&Train. Once you get through Game 3 of training, you can even set the Treat&Train on automatic so that it trains your dog for you. Because you'll be giving so many rewards out during this training program, you'll get done the quickest and with no weight gain if you use your dog's regular daily allotment of dog kibble. Alternatively, you can fill the Treat&Train with dog treats, but treats should comprise only 10% of a dog's regular diet, so this can make training go slowly. Some treats are AAFCO certified to meet your dog's nutritional needs. They can comprise a larger portion of your dog's meal. Some of you are probably skeptical about being able to get your dog to work for regular kibble, or even to work for treats. Just listen to what these owners have to say.
Before we started this, he was on free feed, so we would, fill his bowl and he could just kind of run over there and eat whenever he wanted. So in order to get him to be food motivated, we just took food away and we would only put it out, like the specific measurement that it says on the bag. We'd only put that amount out for, 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes at night. Sometimes he wouldn't eat at all or all of it, and so as he got hungrier and hungrier and he realized that it was only out for a little while, he finally started to go eat it, and he really looked forward to it. And it was like, we made it a game, like he had to earn the food. And it was a transition of maybe a week, but it was miraculous. I had no idea that we could get him to do that, because he would never perform for a nugget of food. It was always had to be like something, worthwhile, like a treat or a biscuit or something.
We have another dog who's famously finicky with his food. You could have the food out in a perfect environment. It would be the best, freshest chicken in the world, and he wouldn't touch it unless he felt like it. We trained him to be food motivated also. In other words, we trained him to eat when the food was out only, and now we put the food out and it's gone in 2 or 3 minutes. I mean, he eats it all up and it's all gone, and they're both much better eaters.
For some dogs, especially those that seem like picky eaters, you'll probably first have to modify their feeding schedule so that you can train them using their regular dog kibble. These dogs are picky either because they have their food out all day so there's no rush to eat it at any particular time, or they've learned that if they wait long enough, you'll feed them human food. If your dog's a picky eater, here's how you can get him motivated to eat his food. Take his regular daily allotment of kibble and cut back to 75%. Remove whatever your dog fails to eat within 5 to 10 minutes and put it back in the bag. If he doesn't want to eat, he's telling you he's not that hungry, so don't feed him until his next meal. Your dog may miss a few meals in an attempt to retrain you to wait on him hand and foot, but usually after a day or two, assuming no one feeds him table scraps or slips other food to him, he'll be eating his regular food with gusto.
But won't the dog starve?
Some of you might be worried that your dog's going to waste away if he misses a few meals or eats less than normal.
By measuring your dog's daily allotment of food and evaluating his body condition, you'll easily keep him in a healthy weight range. For more information on evaluating your dog's body weight, go to the bonus section called Body Condition Scoring. For now, let's look at some other motivators. Some dogs like playing with toys. Others like playing with dogs. Some dogs love praise and petting. Still others like attention from people, but primarily when this consists of play rather than petting. In fact, dogs may be more motivated by these things than they are by food during the moments when you want to train. If your dog is more motivated by play, petting, and things other than food, or seems to have no focus, Make sure you work on the say please by sitting and rewarding calm behavior exercises. If you're not sure what motivates your dog, ask yourself during training, what would my dog rather be doing right now? Motivators vary in usefulness as rewards depending on the situation. Also, make sure you know how to recognize when your dog is more motivated by things like praise and attention. For instance, these dogs are clearly motivated by attention and petting.
Good boy.
This dog could care less.
Good dog! Good dog! What a good boy!
But he likes his kibble. If you weren't watching closely though, you'd miss this minimalist Basenji tail wag. And this dog likes praise and petting sometimes, but she prefers food, especially when being trained. Notice how she ignores the praise and petting. She wants a food reward. One last thing before we get started. Most people don't realize this, but dog training is like a sport. In order to be successful, you have to first have good timing so that you can reward your dog's good behavior as it's occurring, or at least within 1 second. Next, you have to reinforce the good behavior frequently at first until the good behavior becomes a habit. And lastly, you have to be consistent even when you're not having a formal training session. That way there's no question in your dog's mind that polite behavior earns rewards and the unruly behavior does not. Don't worry, we'll remind you about these 3 factors throughout the program, but for now, let's go ahead and get started.